at Harvard are particularly interested in, but are you sure it's not too intense? Her mother's voice sounded worried. She seemed very quiet at dinner. Claire darling, you must trust the process, every reaction, every response, it's all valuable data. Sophie is helping us understand how children process fear and loss. She's contributing to important scientific research. There was a pause, then the sound of paper is rustling. Now about extending your hours at the firm. Sophie pulled her blanket over her head, trying to block out the voices in the darkness under her covers. She could almost imagine she was back in the closet. She wondered if Marcus was recording this too. Her heart rate, her breathing, the way her hands shook as she gripped her stuffed rabbit. Tomorrow would be 20 minutes in the dark, the day after maybe longer. Sophie closed her eyes and tried to practice being quiet, being still, being the perfect subject for Marcus's research. Above her the soft whir of recording equipment continued long into the night. Sophie hadn't had a friend over since Marcus moved in, which made Katie's sleepover invitation even more surprising. She sat at the breakfast table hardly daring to breathe as Marcus reviewed the handwritten note from Katie's mother. An interesting proposition, he said, finally placing the note beside his morning coffee. Perhaps it's time to document pure interaction patterns. He made a quick note in his ever-present notebook before looking at Claire. What are your thoughts, dear? Claire glanced up from her laptop where she was already responding to early morning emails from her law firm. Oh, I think it would be wonderful for Sophie to have Katie over. They've been friends since kindergarten and we haven't had her visit in so long. This Friday. Then Marcus decided, his pen scratching against paper. I'll be working from home purely to observe. Of course, the dynamics of childhood friendship in the context of family restructuring is particularly relevant to my current research. That Friday evening, Katie arrived wearing pink pajamas with unicorns, carrying a sparkly sleeping bag and chattering excitedly about their planned activities. Sophie felt a flutter of genuine happiness for the first time in weeks. Mom bought us cookie dough to bake, Katie announced, hugging Sophie, and I brought Frozen to watch. And good evening, Katie. Marcus's voice cut through the girl's excitement like a knife through ice. He stood in the doorway to his study, notebook in hand. I've prepared a special herbal tea for you both. It's part of our family's evening ritual, something I've developed to help with relaxation and social bonding. Sophie's stomach clenched. She recognized the distinctive blue ceramic teapot he used for what he called his therapeutic blends in his study. Marcus poured the pale golden liquid into delicate white cups. This particular blend, he explained, watching the girls intently, contains chamomile, lavender, and several other carefully selected herbs. I've been documenting its effects on stress reduction in children. Katie took her cup eagerly, always ready to play grown-up. Sophie watched in horror as her friend sipped the tea, knowing what was coming but unable to warn her. It tastes funny, Katie said after a few moments, her face scrunching up. Interesting, Marcus murmured, pen moving rapidly across paper. Initial taste response negative. Please continue, Katie. The full therapeutic benefits require complete consumption. Within an hour Katie was violently ill. Sophie held her friend's hair back in the bathroom, listening to Marcus calmly explaining to Katie's panicked mother over the phone that it must have been something the girls ate earlier. Food poisoning can onset quite suddenly in children, he said, his voice carrying that professional authority that adults never questioned. Yes, of course, I understand. I'll have her ready for pickup in 20 minutes. After Katie left, Marcus spent hours in his study transcribing notes. Sophie lay awake in her bed, remembering how he'd watched Katie's deterioration with those cold, calculating eyes, occasionally murmuring into his digital recorder. Subject shows increased paler gastrointestinal distress, onset at approximately 47 minutes post-consumption, notable anxiety response in control. Subject Sophie. The next morning Claire read the email from Katie's mother over breakfast. They don't think it's best for Katie to sleep over anymore, she said, sounding disappointed. Apparently she was sick all weekend. Such a shame. Children's immune system can be quite unpredictable, Marcus commented, stirring his coffee. Sophie, would you like some tea? I've adjusted the blend slightly for research purposes. Of course. Sophie stared at the blue teapot, her hands trembling under the table. I'm not thirsty. Note the time. Marcus spoke softly into his recorder. Subject displays clear aversion response to offered stimulus. Beginning phase 2 of social isolation study. That night Sophie crept down to the kitchen and found the blue teapot in the dishwasher. As she reached for it, wanting to understand what had happened to Katie, she heard Marcus's voice behind her, curious about my research methods. Sophie. She spun around. He stood in the doorway, silver notebook glinting in the darkness. I find children's responses to perceived threats fascinating, he continued, moving into the kitchen. The way fear shapes behavior creates new neural pathways. He opened his notebook. Would you like to help me document this midnight encounter for science? Sophie ran back to her room. Marcus's Soft laughter following her up the stairs. In the darkness she could hear him speaking into his recorder. Subject demonstrates heightened fight or flight response. Recommend increasing stimulus intensity in next phase of study. Note potential correlation between parental absence and subject compliance. The next morning the blue teapot sat prominently on the breakfast table, steam rising from its spout like a warning. February brought early sunsets and long shadows to their Boston brownstone. Sophie had grown accustomed to the silence that now ruled their home, but not to the mirrors. They appeared gradually, first a full-length one in the hallway, then smaller ones in